You're listening to WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul.
Check, check, 1, 2. Look like a little country, some rock and roll and blues. 'Cause we sure love playing for good people like you. Let me know if you can hear me. Check, check, 1, 2.
Welcome to Music Local and Sustainable, the radio show that features discussions with and the music of local musicians. I am your host, Dave Lake. Tonight, we have Andy Cray and Thomas Mitz in the studio. Andy Cray is the producer and originator of the musical enactment and oratorio combined with monologues, The Last Supper, and Thomas Mitz, who is the librettist for The Last Supper. Welcome, Andy and Thomas.
Thank you.
The Last Supper is described as a musical enactment and oratorio combined with monologues. What does that mean?
It means it's not a traditional musical in the sense that characters break out into song, but music is a fundamental part of it. Basically, the format is mostly monologues, and then after people deliver their monologues, a chorus. My colleague Gary William Friedman, who wrote the music, describes it as kind of a hip Greek chorus. And they sing songs that comment on what just happened, what people said in the monologues. The exception is there's a character called an angel. She is an angel. I originally wrote her as a muse, but she morphed into an angel, and she actually sings in character. The show is about Leonardo da Vinci painting his famous mural, The Last Supper. And this character of the angel sings, and he doesn't see her, but she's singing his thoughts, and what she sings goes into his brain, as a muse would. But aside from that, it's basically people singing, commenting on what the monologues just said, and then at the end, the whole chorus sings to the climax of the show.
It's an interesting conceit because when you hear the phrase Last Supper, you say, oh, it's an Easter story. Well, it's not. It's really him trying to become inspired to do the painting he has been requested to do.
Yes.
And then the characters of the painting come out to inspire him.
Exactly. He summons them. Basically what happens is the show opens with, after the opening number, opens with Leonardo. I originally wrote him as writing in his notebook and begins to talk, but that's usually left out. He has a monologue where he's saying how frustrated he is and how jammed up he is and how dissatisfied he is with so many things. He's never done a monumental piece before. So many pieces were left incompleted, and he's squandered his time in his life.
Painter's block.
Painter's block, exactly. There's his commission to paint this monumental piece, and he's pretty much jammed up. And his fear is the white piece of paper he's got to design it. And then this angel materializes and sings to him about visions, artistic visions. And he becomes inspired with the idea of painting the Last Supper at the moment when Jesus says, "One of you will betray me." At which point, in his imagination, he summons these characters, these disciples, one by one, two by two sometimes, who come out and say what's on their mind right at that moment when Jesus said, "One of you will betray me." And their basic question, is it I? And this is how we go through the story, pretty much. It's a frame musical, not a narrative musical in that sense. It's like chorus line where you could actually flip-flop the monologues and they'd still make perfect sense. Then it comes to the end where he comes to the realization that he needs to come to, that he is the betrayer. And the musical ends in a tableau of the Last Supper. Everybody looking just like in the painting, frozen in position. And you tell how it started and how I became involved.
I was actually on Navy duty in Guantanamo Bay in 1995. I was chaplain at a prison camp there for about 4,300 Haitians and Cubans, and the commanding Marine general said, "Andy, you're doing okay with all the religious work and counseling you're doing, but I want you to take on a collateral duty of teaching the inmates English." So I came up with this concept of the play to kind of fulfill both roles, both the chaplaincy and the learning English, because I needed Jesus and the 12 disciples to learn their parts, and that's the way I was going to teach them English, and one way to do it. So that was the original idea. When I was working in New York City as director of chaplaincy for the Port of New York, New Jersey, I used to take German sea captains and ship officers to a restaurant. What was it called, Tom?
It was Rolf's German
Rolf's.
restaurant.
Had a wonderful German ambiance. These German sailors really liked it. Tom worked there.
Well, Andy was there waiting for a table, and I was eavesdropping. And so I said to him, "Are you a Lutheran minister?" Which I gathered from his conversation. And he said he was a chaplain. And Andy, as I discovered, invariably does when he meets somebody new. He says, "What do you do?" He wants to know as much about you as possible. I said, "Well, I'm a writer. I write plays mostly." And he said, "Oh, I've got a play. How would you like to read it?" And I'm thinking, no, I don't think so. But, I couldn't actually say that. So I gave him my address, and sure enough, a couple days later, showed up in my mailbox. He asked me if I wanted to rewrite it, actually, before I even read it. I read it.
And Tom rewrote it. I'll tell you, he wrote it. He took a little dirt piece and put it into a jewel.
Why don't you describe what the original version was like?
The original version was with the disciples getting up and saying who they were before they met Jesus, and how they got in contact with Jesus, or how Jesus invited them to become a disciple, and then how their life changed. And Leonardo was not even part of the picture, although we ended with the tableau in the original piece. But Tom added Mary and Martha, the prior who actually commissioned Leonardo to paint the painting, and then Leonardo himself, and then it gave it a problem and a solution.
When I read it, it began with the tableau. Everybody's at the table, everybody's dressed. People stand up, they say their piece and sit down. When the last person has spoken, it's over. And I told him I couldn't rewrite it. And he said, "What would you do?" I said, "I'd throw it out and do it over." And he said, "Okay, go ahead." And so he called my bluff on that one, because I didn't think he was going to say that. So it occurred to me that the tableau should be the end of the show, not the beginning. And if that is the case, then the tableau is a solution. So what is the problem? I had to find out what the problem was that would be the solution to. I'm also a painter, and I know art history, and I knew the background of Leonardo da Vinci, and I knew that he hadn't done a painting in 10 years, and he'd never done a monumental work, and he was in trouble. So I figured that's it. The problem is Leonardo's blocked, he can't do it. So what does he do? And he invokes in his imagination what each one of these people is going through at that moment. He gives them a background. Whether it's accurate or not isn't relevant, because it's what is in his imagination. Each one of them has to be endowed with a character, a backstory, and what they're going through right now. And so that's what I did. I wrote it out like that, and Andy was pleased with it. I knew right away that it should be a musical.
Why?
Well, because it needed music, and it just called out for music. But not the kind of music where people break out into song. Wasn't that type of thing. And also they had music with it originally. I think they had some spiritual songs played on guitar that were interspersed in, with no particular relevancy to the story, but it just added something. I just instinctively knew that this had to have music. So
Now, does that come from your fact that you're a musician?
Well, I love musicals. I always have since I was a kid. I've always been a big fan of musicals, and I've been working as a playwright for some time, and I've been writing musicals already. So yes, I guess that's true. I knew some really good composers. I first approached a fellow named Mark Holman, who won the Tony for a show called Urinetown that he wrote, and he declined to do it. We were both members of the same church, so he was the first one I went to. Then I thought, well, Gary Friedman, he's a really good writer. I've been collaborating with him. So I went to him, and he was hesitant at first, but he eventually said yes. He's Jewish, and he had a problem with that in the beginning, but then he came up with his own solution, which he talks about in the play here, in the composer's notes, where he realized that this was a Seder, traditional Seder, and that Jesus would have been speaking and singing in Hebrew. So when I came to that part, I got a Haggadah, the Jewish format of the Seder, and I just used the Haggadah, put it right into the show, and that turned the key for him, that he was able to identify with it. Because it really is. It's a non-denominational piece. And it isn't really evangelical in that sense. I mean, what the show is about, when people ask me what it's about, I say it's about Leonardo painting the Last Supper, which it really is. But a lot of churches have been involved, and they can identify with it as well. But it's not strictly pitching a religious point of view. It's pitching an artistic point of view that everybody has to deal with, which is it. Is it I? Am I the betrayer? What have I done with my life? And where am I going? That's the big questions that I ask in this show.
Tonight, we have Andy Cray and Thomas Mitz in the studio. Andy Cray is the producer and originator of the musical enactment and oratorio combined with monologues, The Last Supper, and Thomas Mitz, who is the librettist for The Last Supper. So let's start to the theme of the show, and let's tie this in with the individual musical performances as well.
The show starts with
Leonardo actually telling a little bit of his biography of his own struggles and his background, how he became a painter. And he really didn't like the idea of being a painter. He much more wanted to design and build military equipment, military armor. He probably even had some first concepts of the tank and the helicopter. He was very frustrated that the noble people of the time just commissioned him to be a painter of their paramours and their gardens and to design their landscape. But a painter actually brought him a lot of notoriety, and probably The Last Supper, that painting is one of his most famous classics.
Oh yeah. Do you want to start off? Shall we listen to the overture?
Sure. Now, an overture generally sets the musical scene in a musical.
Yes.
This is setting the theme of the libretto. It's setting the theme of the whole
Right.
story.
Often musical overtures have segments of the melodies that are revealed later. This does as well. These melodies come back into the show. But it's not a traditional musical in that sense. We're setting what's going on right now. We're telling you what we're going to tell you, basically. Andy summed up Leonardo's part very nicely. But if it's okay, I'd like to read you part of the monologue.
Sure.
This is a segment of what happens when Leonardo's on stage, when the lights go up, and he's talking. This isn't his entire monologue, but this is the end of it. He says, "Why bother to paint when a painter is regarded as nothing more than a tradesman, a decorator, which is precisely why I left Florence and entered the Duke's service to begin with. Florence, a city overrun with painters, scores of them, begging for commissions by day and filling the taverns by night. Dirty, paint-splattered, drink-dragging, backstabbing, whoring, nearly as bad as sculptors. This was Leonardo? Not if I could help it. When I wrote to the Duke of Milan offering my services, I described myself as an inventor, an engineer, a man capable of making machines of war, casting cannon and creating equestrian statues. Only at the very end did I mention that I was also a painter. Having a gift for painting served me well in the beginning. I was born the illegitimate son of a Florentine notary. Not an auspicious beginning. When I was 8 years old, I painted a dragon on the door of our house that set my father running in terror when he came to visit his mistress, my mother, thus proving that art can have a function. Soon after that, I was sent away, apprenticed to the master painter Andrea del Verrocchio, and it wasn't long before I was painting all but the finishing touches of his commissions. When I was 14, he let me paint an angel in a major work. I used no model. I could see the angel as clearly as if she were sitting in front of me. At this point, the angel walks on stage. And he continues, "Even as a boy, my mind would formulate wonderful plans that would bring me honor and glory and wealth beyond those of a painter. I would become so exalted that the disgrace of my birth would be obliterated. And so it seemed to happen. The Duke accepted my offer, the offer of my services. Glory was within my reach. I came to court adorned in velvet. I was received with the respect I had longed for. And what happened? Promises made with the greatest enthusiasms were never kept. Military designs that inspired awe were never financed. My inventions the subject of ridicule. My function? To play the lute and decorate the garden. So I'm back where I started. I am to paint the dining hall in the Monastery Santa Maria del Grazie with a depiction of the Last Supper, so that the fat monks have something to gaze upon while they stuff their faces. Here is my hell, the white service to be faced alone." This comes after the overture.
This comes after the overture.
Right.
And the visions come.
Then there's a song called Visions, which the angel is singing to Leonardo.
You are never alone when your problems are great. First you must ask, then you must wait. A vision came to me, a reverie of harmony, a beauty I could never live without. But visions fade away without the faith to make them stay, so quickly disappearing into doubt. The world all around us is merely a facade. The visions that surround us are glimpses of God. visions come to me with open eyes. Let me see the beauty and the meaning of life again. Oh, visions come to me with open eyes. Let me see the beauty and the meaning of life again. The beauty and meaning of
I've got two swords hidden under my cloak, two sharp, double-edged Roman stabbing swords, sharp as a razor. If I knew who the betrayer was, I would stick one right between his ribs, even if it were my brother Andrew. But it's not him. Know what Peter says? Something like that?
Something, word for word, that's it. Andy is, you might have guessed, has actually played Peter in this. That's the first of disciples who is taken out of Leonardo's imagination, comes. During that piano interlude, during that last song, that's when Leonardo comes to the realization where he says, a moment frozen in time, the moment at the Last Supper when Jesus tells his disciples, one of you will betray me. Who were these men? How did they react? And the first person that comes to his imagination, walks out on stage, is Peter. And Peter's got a function. As well as delivering this monologue, he makes comments on each one of the disciples, a little message about who they are, and as he mentions their name, they walk out on stage. Depending on how the director stages it, they sit around or stand around or whatever, so they're identified as they walk out.
With the song Visions, it seems like the angel is reminding Leonardo of what he already knows. That he does, these things come to him suddenly and come to them in their completeness.
Yes.
And all he needs to do the work is to allow those visions to come.
Yes.
And not to block them.
That's exactly right. Problems are great. First you must ask and then you must wait. The answer will come, and it does come to him. But getting that answer isn't the end of the story. There's a long way to go once you decide what you're going to paint. It's how you're going to do it, and then what you're going to say. Most people have a background in New Testament. They know that Peter is the one who actually ran away the next day, and he denied Jesus. But before that, he was bragging about how he would never do that. So I wrote a song called Stand Like a Rock.
How can this anger stay locked up inside? I don't know how I can keep it from breaking out now. How long will it take me to see? Anyone can tell you a lie. No matter how they try or what they guarantee, you never know on who to rely.
Think about a plan to survive. Find myself a way to decide. I'm not the one who's wrong. I'll keep my plan alive and fight them if they don't go along.
I'll never bend like a block of solid rock. I'll stand until the end.
I'll never
I will have to arrange to show them what a rock I can be.
The pressure's now on me to try and make them change, to try and teach the blind to see.
I'll never hide, show no fear, with danger near, and take it in my stride.
Stand like a rock, don't admit when I've been hit, refuse to let it show.
I'll never bend like a block of solid rock, I'll stand until the end. I'll never run, here to stay, I won't betray the work that I've begun.
Stand like a rock, don't admit when you've been hit. Take each blow, don't let it show. Refuse to quit, refuse to go. Stand like a rock.
Actually, let me say this before I go any further. Lyrics unclothed by melody are just little naked children running around. And I have beautiful melodies to work with from Gary William Friedman. And he's a wonderful composer. And the harmonies he wrote are very difficult, very challenging, very beautiful. I go to the rehearsals with the chorus, and it's a challenge because you're writing very hard parts, but they're getting it. They're working really hard at it. But music is so important to this.
And how did that come together? How did the music and the lyrics come together?
With great difficulty on almost every one. I approached Gary, as I told you earlier, and he agreed to write it. Then we figured, how are we going to do this? Now, as a lyric writer, I like to get a melody and set a lyric to melody. Lyric writing is, I've written a lot in a lot of different venues. I've written film, television, fiction, a lot, and studied them all. But the most difficult thing I've ever had to write were theater lyrics. They have to rhyme, they have to scan, unlike rock and roll lyrics. I mean, they really have to be good in that technical sense. And they have to sound conversational, they have to be pithy. There's a lot, it's hard to get a good lyric that actually rhymes, scans, and does everything it's supposed to do.
And in this case, they need to push the monologues forward. They need to push the story forward by enhancing on the monologues.
Yes, in that sense, right. It's not a traditional, like, Rodgers and Hammerstein musical where the actual songs move the story. Because it's like I said, it's a frame musical. There's not a plot that's being pushed forward. And the lyrics basically are commenting on what the monologue said. But that doesn't mean it's not hard to write them. You asked me how we did it. Gary likes to get a complete lyric and write the melody for it. I like to get the complete melody and write the lyrics for it.
I see a problem. We need an angel.
You need an angel. We managed to do it. The kind of compromise that I came up with, which we did in most cases well. Once I found out what the character had to say, what I wanted the character to say, I would write a blank verse, sometimes quite long, and I'd give it to him and say, see if you can find any lines that inspire you to write a melody. And he would come with a fragment of a melody, then I'd write something. The problem is if I write a really complete lyric that rhymes and scans, and I give it to a composer and they say, oh, that's great, we just got to change this line here. And the whole thing, it's like a house of cards. You pull the bottom card out and the whole thing comes tumbling down. But we did it. Sometimes he gave me melodies and sometimes I gave him complete lyrics. And most of the time we went back and forth. But despite the struggle, I think we came up with something really wonderful.
You're listening to WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. If your business enjoys the programming on WRUU-LP, please support the station with a donation. Let your customers, neighbors, and friends know that you share our vision of building a thriving economy based on a diverse and vibrant community. Our listeners will know you support Savannah's only broad-based community radio station. Become a tower sponsor or underwriter. To check out the levels of corporate sponsorship and to donate, go to www.wruu.org/corporate. Again, to check out the levels of corporate sponsorship and to donate, go to www.wruu.org/corporate. Thank you for listening to and supporting WRUU LP. You're listening to Music Local and Sustainable, and I'm your host, Dave Lake. Tonight, we have Andy Cray and Thomas Mitz in the studio. Andy Cray is the producer and originator of the musical enactment and oratorio combined with monologues, The Last Supper, and Thomas Mitz, who is the librettist for The Last Supper.
How Beautiful Upon the Mountain, which I just was sitting in a church one day and opened a Bible. I like the book of Isaiah when I'm writing this kind of stuff for inspiration. I just open it up and there was that verse, how beautiful upon the mountain are the feet of the messenger. I didn't quote it exactly. I just kind of remembered it and went home and wrote the lyric. I think I gave that lyric pretty complete to Gary, and he came up with this great gospel song with it.
Yeah, it's really very uplifting.
Upon the mountain,
Mountain on the feet of the messenger. How wonderful the words he explains. Who can live in fear? Who can live in once far away is here.
dreaming, no more past. Tomorrow is here at last. What does that mean to Leonardo?
Well, what it means to Leonardo is what it means to the disciples, these people who were commenting on Simon and Thaddeus. Thaddeus was a person who wanted to be a doctor. All his life he'd wanted to be a physician. And Simon was Simon the Zealot. You know, they never used my name, but called me the Zealot. He believed in armed surrection against Rome. And he's used the sword. I know what it's like to strike and draw blood, and I know what it's like to be wounded. I've seen dead comrades, and I've taken the enemy's life. Thaddeus goes on as to when Simon and his friends were injured in their violent clashes with the Romans, it was I who would hide them and care for their wounds. So what they're looking for is an answer. Their Messiah. This was taken from the book of Isaiah, which is a prediction about the coming Messiah. No more dreaming, no more past, tomorrow's here at last. He's here. This is it. This is the one. This is the moment. And that's what they're thinking. And that's what Leonardo's invoking in his imagination. In Leonardo's sense, everything has some kind of subtext, so it would mean this is his chance to do something that he's been failing at, that he's never succeeded at before. This is the moment. It happens to all of us. I mean, now's the time. We have these epiphanies in our life where it comes to the realization that we have to do something now. And now's the chance.
Listening to this, really, there's two things that immediately come to mind. One is the wonderful use of the story of each of the apostles to reflect upon Leonardo's own perspective of his life and what he's done, his successes, his failures, and how he has to move forward, just as each of the apostles have to reach that in themselves. And it's really wonderful how these two intermix, and you can read it in either way. The other thing that immediately comes to mind is what you said before. We've got the hippest Greek chorus as you can imagine.
Right. This is not 15th century music. It's quite contemporary. But that's how it fits in. You know, I have to say one thing that struck me when I started writing this, it takes a lot of temerity to write about Leonardo, one of the greatest geniuses in our time. And everything, dramatic pieces, biographical pieces especially, are simplified. And how do you simplify a genius like that? I tread very carefully. Most of what we know about Leonardo comes from Vasari. And I stuck very closely with that and trying to comprehend what he was going through. I incorporated his deathbed words in the show. There's something that I think it was George Kaufman who said it. When you are done with the show and about to freeze the text, you want to stick in as many laughs as you can. So, two things. This show was short on women and laughs. So after the first version, I tried to fix both of those to the best of my ability.
Very well.
Well, there's not a lot of women at the Last Supper, so I stole the characters of Mary and Martha, and I gave them some conflict and had them generate some humor, I think, hopefully.
Sure. Martha's a real heretic. She points at all the disciples and says to Jesus, "Do you think one of these men would lift a finger to help me with the housework?"
After this, the prior comes in.
The prior is the boss of the abbey.
Don't you think he'd make a good prior?
I think he'd make a great prior. I think we'll have to cast him for this show.
He comes in and he says to Leonardo, "Did I wake you?" And Leonardo says,
"You interrupted me."
"Interrupted me? To be interrupted, you've got to be doing something. My painters have already erected the scaffolding, and I've already got a bill for your unholy alchemist brew of paints, and you haven't even lifted a brush."
And Leonardo says, "Prior, men of genius do not need to exert themselves physically to accomplish great things. This phenomena is known as thinking." And then the prior goes on, "I'm not about to be taken in by some glorified loafer who takes money for work that is never completed."
Beware, painter.
Yeah, so that usually gets a laugh. And it's also nice because the prior we have guest roles all the time. The local sheriff or mayor or somebody, it's a short role, and all they have to do
Or radio personality.
Or a radio personality sometime, you know. They just have to be authoritative on stage and be able to bellow a little bit. It works pretty well.
I appreciate this because much of the work is cerebral. It's not seen. It's like when a state legislator says to a faculty member, "You're only working 12 hours a week?" because that's the time you're in the classroom.
Sorry.
The actual applying of the paint is the least of the creative process.
That's right, exactly.
Just like the writing of the notes
Yes.
or the writing of the words is the least of the creative process.
Right, that takes, boy, once you know what you're going to write, it just spills out for the most part.
How much of what goes into the issues related to the creation of this painting are the same issues that go into the creation of the work that is explaining this process?
Well, Andy asked me one time, I think it was pertaining to the song Visions, which we just heard, he asked me how autobiographical that was. And it is, to a certain extent. We all have our visions, but they're hard to maintain. Visions can be destroyed by doubt, self-doubt. And this magnificent vision is just, it's gone. So it's something that all artists, I think, have to struggle with and have to maintain, to work to maintain. This piece, I was working with some great people. I mean, Andy, as the producer, was very helpful and encouraging, to say the least, about writing this. And Gary Friedman was a great person to work with. It was a great experience doing this. It took a couple years to get it together, actually.
Yeah.
I think the first time I wrote the text, there wasn't music. It was done up in Connecticut. But when we first did it with the score, that was in New York City. And it was a good production. It was really fun watching it come together, because you just don't know until you get it up there. It didn't take a lot of rewriting once I wrote it, which is unusual. Most plays take a lot of rewriting. It took some editing more than anything else.
We did 9 shows at a church right off Times Square called St. Luke's, wasn't it?
St. Luke's, right.
Yeah. Right, on 49th Street?
48,
whatever.
49.
Yep. And that congregation has 3 different theater settings in the building. So that was kind of really nice.
We have some wonderful singers from Savannah. I was at a chorus rehearsal Monday night, and we've got people from SCAD. We've got professional singers from Savannah, some people who you know, like Tom Cooler. Mark Malloy and Josephine Johnson is also singing in the chorus. These are kind of Savannah celebrities. Kevin Wallace, let's get that name out there. He is our inspirational and full of life music director, who's also immensely gifted. It's working out really well. It's going to be a wonderful show.
Yeah, we've been invited by the White Bluff United Methodist Church over there at the end of White Bluff, where it intersects with Truman Parkway. The senior pastor there, John Haney, could not be more cooperative, and the minister of music, Ron Alford. They're allowing us to unscrew all their liturgical furniture so that we can put on the play on Palm Sunday evening. And in fact, that's the opening night, is Palm Sunday, April 9th. And then we have a show April 10th, which is Monday, and then April 11th, which is Tuesday. But that Tuesday is also Passover.
And how do you purchase tickets for this?
Okay, the tickets can be purchased through the telephone number 912-441-4640, 912-441-4640. You can text it there too. We also accept credit cards. The Sunday and Tuesday performance are to benefit the Maritime Bethel at Savannah, which is a port ministry here in the big port of Savannah. And on the Monday night, the Rotary clubs are getting together to support what they call Georgia Rotary Student Program. So we are helping a international student from Iceland with tuition, housing, and other expenses while she's here for a year. And Soli Vera will be in the play too. So it'll be nice. So it's a GRSP, Georgia Rotary Student Program.
And you can also show up and buy tickets the night of the performance.
That's right.
Which is April 9th, 10th, and 11th at White Bluff Methodist Church on White Bluff. If you're leaving Savannah, it's right before you get to the Truman Parkway.
Yeah.
You can see the Truman Parkway and the church is on your right.
And every evening there is a 6 p.m. dinner that precedes the show, and then curtain is at 7. So you can buy a ticket for both the dinner and show, or the show only.
And how much are the tickets?
Tickets range from $15 to $20, and they're a little more expensive on Monday night because those are the $20 tickets on Monday night because we're trying to raise money for that international student.
But that's remarkably cheap, especially if you just got here from New York and went to this theater in New York. It's a great value. Everybody who does this show does it again and again. You know, it becomes a real, almost spiritual experience for people putting it on. Everybody's affected by the show. And that's just serendipity. I don't know why this show works so well, but it seems to do that. You know, one song I'd like to play, which is one of my personal favorites, is a song called Didn't You Know? And it's sung by a woman, but she's actually singing what's going on in Jesus' mind right now. Because he's, he's got that 20-yard stare. He's been showing abnormal behavior by being violent to the people in the temple. And, he's seen what's coming up. And it makes him pensive, to say the least. And so I wrote the song to show what I think may have been going on in his mind, what he was saying to himself and to his disciples. So that was what I was trying to do in the words of this song. And it's called Didn't You Know? It starts off with a chorus, repeating what we first heard in the overture, and then it goes into the soloist.
and I'm left undefended from your mockery.
This fire that burns all day, this fire that fills my night, this fire will outlive all the fear that comes my way. Didn't you know how much I care? Why did you go? How could you dare? Soon you will know. Soon you will care. And when you do, I will be there. Didn't you know?
That seems to reflect, when you look at the painting, how there's chaos around.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the serene
Mm-hmm.
Jesus in the middle.
That's a good observation. That's very true, actually. In theater parlance, this is what's called the 11 o'clock number. It's the big number before the closing of the show, which usually occurred at 11 o'clock. That's why they called it that. I have to save a powerful number for the end of the show before the end of the show. And that's what that is. I've always been very fond of that. I think that may be the first piece Gary and I wrote for the show, actually. We didn't write them consecutively in order. We just wrote them as they occurred to us so that I could come up with lyrics. Following this is the finale. You hear the angels singing, but you don't hear Leonardo's spoken dialogue. And this really becomes the climax of the show. So if it's okay with you, I'll read it to you.
Yes.
And the angel says, "What do you see, Leonardo?" "Confusion, pieces to a puzzle, but no solution." Angel, "Where's the vision you're searching for?" Leonardo, "I can't see it." Angel, "Where are the gifts you've been given?" Leonardo, "They're gone, my powers are gone." "Why have they gone away?" Leonardo, "I am the betrayer." "Don't be afraid, Leonardo. It's too late. Look for the vision you need once more. I have squandered my gifts."
What do you see, Leonardo? Where is the vision you're searching for? Where are the gifts you've been given? Why have they gone away? Don't be afraid, Leonardo. Look for the vision you need once more. Know that you will be forgiven. You may find a way. The candles are lit, table is set, food is about to be served, sacred traditions observed. After this night, different from all, nothing will be as before. We'll be together no
Adonai Eloheinu,
Where is our faith? Once it was strong. Where is the love that held us together so long? Has it left us forever, forever?
Who will betray? Who has their prize? Who runs away? Who makes the great sacrifice? Will anyone remember? Will anyone remember? Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, the Lord our God, the Lord our God is one. The Lord our God, the Lord our God is
And when the show ends, we can't see this, we can hear it, and the last ringing note of the finale, Jesus yells out, "One of you will betray me," and everybody in the cast freezes into the tableau of the Last Supper, and there's Leonardo's solution. He solved the problem. Listen how.
I just want to remind everyone that this is going to be at the White Bluff Methodist Church, actually White Bluff United Methodist Church, on April 9th, 10th, and 11th. $15 on April 9th and 11th, and $20 because it's a fundraiser on the 10th, and it would be an additional $15 catered dinner any of those evenings. And this is the Last Supper. I want to thank you so very, very much for coming in this evening to talk about this, because I think it's something that I wanted to share with my audience, and hopefully they may consider going out to it.
Well, thank you very much. Very appreciative.
This has been another edition of Music Local and Sustainable, and I've been your host, Dave Lake. Save this time for another show next week.
Well, I know we ain't headed for the Hall of Fame. Gonna give it what we got, man, that ain't no shame. Let me know if you can hear me. Check, check, 1, 2. Let me know if you can hear me. Check, check, 1.